BIA started talking about the possibility of residential high-rise development. And that's the only difference. And if somehow, I mean, if you could separate that out some way, that, you know, if we did get high-rise and they were exempt, we may end up with some parking problems in the downtown for the businesses, because now they're going to be need for more bylaw officers, or they'd be filling up some of the parking lots that were put there to accommodate shoppers. So that was the concern of the downtown people. All the rest of it, absolutely. You know, for commercial development, there is an exemption. So it's a bit of a dilemma for me. I can support what the mayor's saying, but I'm wondering if staff might come back with, you know, something a little bit separate from this, in addition to, that would deal with residential development in the downtown. Could I ask through you to staff if that is a possibility? And, you know, if this goes through, if maybe you could come back with something that would address that concern?
I'm certainly prepared to review this further. When I refer to classes of development, I was thinking of high-density residential development in the downtown core, and perhaps having some kind of parking requirement. It would probably make that development more saleable, for, you know, more marketable to the community. But I'm certainly willing to undertake further review of that policy.
I would rather, I don't think I'm going to support the mayor's motion. I would definitely support staff reviewing this and coming back with something a little bit more specific to separate, you know, the existing commercial development versus residential high-rise development, and as two different types of development in the downtown. I'd look forward to seeing that wording, because I think it would address then both the problems. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I can count. I'll withdraw the motion, but I would encourage staff to just have a review of this.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you.
The mayor is going to withdraw his motion, but I'm kind of confused, Mr. Chair, and you should know by now it's easy to confuse me. I didn't think we had cash in lieu. So if we don't have cash in lieu, what are we debating? I just don't understand what we're doing, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chair.
I guess that's true. I guess the problem that I have, number one, and it's Councillor Black that talked about it, that what if we have a high-rise development, and we're talking, it could be 50, it could be 60, it could be 100. Where are we going to do with the parking? You're going to get the whole count, or the whole town parked on the sidewalks when people are on the streets where people can't get to the stores. That's not what you want to do. I think if you're going to have that kind of development, you need to have parking, whether it's underground parking or when they're coming in, they're just going to either have to dig deep or buy more land for parking. You cannot do something like that. I can understand about the ones that are downtown that really have no options right now, and the mayor is 100% correct. Anyway, that's my thought. Councillor Height.
Just wondering if we ever collect cash in lieu. I see it's in black, so it's been in our official plan for a while, has it? And how much money we got in that account?
Mary? Oh, sorry. I seen her light match go on first, okay?
Through the chair, yes, we have collected cash in lieu. I am familiar with it being used, for example, to develop the parking lot in downtown Port Dover. So I know that we have used it. We used it in Delhi for a parking lot there near the council building there. So but the amounts, that's something finance has got to answer.
So the mayor, you have withdrawn your motion? Councillor Brunton.
Well, just so I'm clear, if the motion's withdrawn and you're going to look at parking in general, like how this whole thing's worded, is that the way we left it, or are leaving it?
Yes, I will definitely undertake to further review
Yeah.
that policy.
Yeah. I think there's a big difference between revamping an older structure that's taken up all the land area where there is no room for parking versus a new building that's going to be built as a high-rise or whatever, because you got the option then to put parking on the bottom floor, like the Dover Wharf, something like that. But it's a changing world, the way people want accommodations. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to page 199, 200. Air transportation, a prayer and a wing, I guess, I'm not sure. Sorry about that. Page 201, 202, Councillor,
201, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
8.5 rail lines again. I think we've advised staff earlier to look into this rail line, whether it's in fact going to be active or inactive, right? Is there a comment from planning staff?
We did commit to look into that, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
well, basically, the railroad is still being used, or the rails are still being used right up to almost past Fernley to, what is it, I can't, doesn't come to me right now, but just out there by the trailer park where the road there is. But other than that, I cannot see that they're going to have to do a lot of work because there's, with no trains moving through there, the brush is just about cleared over the whole inn, so they're going to have a whole lot of problems if they're going to put solar panels through there, and I haven't heard any more from anybody there, so there certainly hasn't been any movement to do anything there. So I'm not so sure that that was actually going to come to fruition. Anyway, sorry.
Mr. Chair, I guess it's that item D there under rail lines. You know, it talks about any development within 300 meters of an active rail line. So is this one active or inactive? Because then that would change whether someone has to do more work to get a permit or a development application. So that's the way I read it.
Probably correct. Okay. 201, 202, 203. Just want to go back to 203, noise vibration. We seem to have some major problems, and I'm not sure that this is to deal with this or not, but I'm going to ask anyway. We have some, and it may be just bylaw rather than but noise vibration from a family, I guess, that has a track that they put in their property with their kids, and there's some major problems there with homes and on Sundays and weekends and everything like that, where they can't get any privacy or any, I guess, to sit in their backyard and enjoy their backyard because the motorcycles are running and causing any kind of problems. I don't know whether that comes under this or whether it comes under bylaw.
Mr. Chair, that would come through your noise bylaw and the enforcement of that bylaw.
Okay, thank you. 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, 212, 213, 214, 215, 216, sorry, Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, to 215 interim control bylaws, just quickly reading it, I think we ran into a bit of trouble there. Should this outline that it can be, that it is, the use of it is restrictive? Does it really say that here? You can't do 2 interim control bylaws within a certain time period? Should that be in there?
That wording can be added. It says, shall be established in accordance with the relevant sections of the Planning Act, and that's what's
So
in the
just
Planning
reference to
Act.
the Planning Act covers it off?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
It's wording that can be added if you feel that's necessary.
Well, I just know we sort of ran into a bit of trouble there, that's all.
Okay. 216, 217, 218, 19, 219, 220, 221, 222, 223, 224, 225, 226, 227. Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring your attention to number C, or letter C there, where development consists of farm operations, farm buildings, and the residence of the farm operator. Site plan control shall not apply, except in cases where specifically required by this plan, such as where an on-farm diversified use is proposed. So when I read that the last bit, such as where an on-farm diversified use is proposed, as an example. That could be one of many, but I see it as only one example. Now, a bit of a dilemma I have with this is we're trying to get farmers to diversify their use, and when they attempt to do that, we're going to throw them into the red tape called site plan control. Is that really necessary?
Matt?
Through Mr. Chair, that is only intended in specific cases, situations which is outlined in the agricultural policies on farm diversified uses. So not all on-farm diversified uses would be required to go through the site plan process. It depends on the nature of the operation. I think uses such as non-farm winery or cidery that has a lot of traffic coming onto the site with parking requirements, that kind of thing, that would may be a situation where it would be required, but certainly would not be required in all situations.
Okay, and then item D, it says here, so I'm looking at this like as a farm. It says if you, construction of one building where the size of a building is to be substantial, most barns are fairly substantial. You typically need a parking lot to park stuff around the barn. So again, now they're into site plan control. I'm struggling with the fact I can't see them not ever being in site plan control here.
To you, Mr. Chair, farms are, as a whole, exempt from site plan control. So I don't think that policy would pertain to them. It would be primarily commercial, industrial buildings or medium or high-density residential developments.
But if you jump back up to the C section, such as where on-farm diversified use is proposed, maybe they need a barn for that diversified use.
To you, Mr. Chair, only for certain types of on-farm diversified uses. The C starts with saying that where development consists of farm operations and farm buildings and the residents of the farm operated, the site plan control should not apply, except in cases that are specifically required in the plan. So normally a farm buildings would not be part of or subject to site plan control.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I guess some of the problems that I have with this site plan control is that it seems to be a catch-all for the red tape cluster. Okay, so F, the county may apply certain conditions to site plan approval and may require that a certain standard of design be applied. So you like flowery curtains, I like blinds? Like really? That seems a bit excessive to even have that in there. That's what I think. I remember from before you told me about the design part of things. But then it says the county shall require financial security through bonding or other financial arrangement prior to development even. Can someone explain to me how that works? And why would anybody even want to go through this process is beyond me.
Through you, the chair, site plan control is a mechanism when that is used by the municipality when, in this case, on-farm diversification is becoming more than is permitted, and that's usually in the case where lots of people are coming to the site. There's additional parking, traffic. We want to ensure as a municipality that the people that are visiting these on-farm diversified uses that it's safe for them to do so, especially if they're on a working farm, which could have, a number of implements and tractors and things like that could be dangerous for the public. So this mechanism is there in those instances. Does that help?
In some ways, but don't you look at that anyway? Like here we have Clark here saying that we could set up housing on farms to get more people in, and then I'm thinking, oh no, anybody who attempts to try it ends up getting their farm sucked into the site plan control hole and run away. Like, why would you go through all that trouble just to try to bring some economy into Norfolk County? It's so counterproductive, I feel.
So the case that you're stating there was a bunkhouse conversion, a bunkhouse to resort seasonal use on the farm, and that one was not under site plan control. It has a limited scale. Something like Burn and Kill or a larger winery or something like that, they would be under site plan control.
I was speaking specifically I'm not sure the bunkhouse thing, I meant the little cabins that he showed us a picture of for the alternative housing. That's technically not a bunkhouse, I don't consider it, but...
Through the chair, that's an example of how Norfolk County did alternative housing on agricultural.
So even if you wanted to have one of those things, now you get into site plan control, is there a cost to that? How much does it cost for that?
Through the chair, yes, there is a cost to the site plan application. I believe it's about $1,200, and typically there is an agreement that's associated with that. Again, the Planning Act, though, describes when site plan control kicks in, and it's when there is an increase in the usability of the property, and the cases that I've just cited are an example of those.
And what would be a typical bond that you would have to put forward? The security bond?
So sometimes, whether it's a traffic mechanism or a landscape security, depending on what it is, we ensure that we hold money to make sure those items are done through the agreement, and when they are completed, then the money is returned.
Estimate amount of money?
It really depends on what the item is. If anything is under that $2,000 mark, we tend to do. We do a different agreement where we don't need to go through the whole agreement process. If it's anything more than $2,000, then we do the agreement process.
Mary, did you want to add something here?
I think Pam's covered it, but I was thinking myself that there are situations, because this is a broad section, it covers commercial too. So if you think about like the redevelopment of the Canadian Tire site, there was all kinds of things that had to be done on that site. So there were conditions around removing I think it was a drain that crossed underneath where the building now is. There were connections to water and sewer that had to be dealt with. And so when you're working in our roads and trying to do those things and do them properly, there's a lot of things that have to happen, have to be checked and so on, so that it's done properly and so the county's protected. So it's not something that we enter into lightly, but it is something that's very important.
Councillor Brunton.
Site plan, through you, Mr. Chairman, did I read in there someplace where if a bunkhouse is moved or relocated or something, you have to have site plan control on a farm? Did I read that or no? Well, my question is, I guess, when you talk site plan, does it have to be all engineered, or can it be a simple process where they show a layout of a building? And I understand they can be pretty, dealt with them, they can get complicated with all the issues that they want on a site plan, or they can be, you could be very simple, I guess. Is that allowed, or is it now all, minute you say site plan, it's got to be done by a consultant?
Site plans do cover a lot of technical information,
Yeah.
such as the drainage, and so you need to know the elevation of the land if the drainage plan is going to work. You need to know whether the sewer and lines are going to be in the right places with the right fall, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff maybe Jason could jump in on, but those things need professionals. So even when you try to do something that's a pretty simple rural industrial site or rural commercial site, you still need to have an engineer be looking at it in order to make sure you get things right.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the process. I just wondered, like, how in-depth you go for some of the simpler applications, you know? Sometimes it can be very simple, but it does say you require a site plan, and that's where it becomes costly.
Yeah, and through the chair, we do try to work with applicants, especially the mums and pops in agricultural areas, to the best of their abilities. The drawings do need to be done by an engineer, but often the application and the agreement, if an agreement's needed in those situations, can very easily be done by the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Brunton, you're done? Okay, sorry. Councillor Columbus.
Just a quick question, is site plan registered on title?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was some answer. But it was correct. Okay, we have 16 pages to go. Do you want to take a break right now and do the rest, or do you want to go through until we're done? Let's get her going. Okay, 227, site plan control. We've done that one. 228. 229, 230, 231, excuse me, 232, 233, 234, 235, 236, 237, 238, 239, 240, 241. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Brunton. Can we finish these pages and then we'll go to the maps? That's what we can do. Well, they referred to the maps? Okay, we can do that. What map are you on?
If I may, through you to staff, the sand and gravel pits issue, and it's on, and I'm only referring to Simcoe in this case, but maybe other councilors have concerns. But the sand and gravel on C4 and 5, there's quite a bit of the sand and gravel pits issues around Simcoe, if you look at that map. And if you recall, we had, and I can recall two issues, one south of Simcoe, one on the 14th, I guess you're familiar with. And at the time, we didn't really have any control. I think it was all controlled by the Ministry of Natural Resources, am I correct? We didn't have any say when that land, I'll use the one on the 14th, when it was turned into a gravel pit or a wayside pit. I don't know what it became. I can't remember now, but there's a lot of opposition. I think there was an OMB hearing on it, if I'm not, or not an OMB hearing, but a hearing on that. And I'm just wondering if we have, I thought there were going to be some changes where we had more say, or at least the local municipality had more say in how those particular applications would be dealt with. Is that change? Are you aware of? Can somebody answer that? Or like, we didn't seem to have much say in how it was handled.
Through the chair, I am aware that in the old bylaws, there was something that permitted those sand hills to be removed for agricultural purposes. And that went up on the 14th. I think that was something that was used in advocating that particular one. That one, and there's another site that through the board hearing, the decision was those were permitted. But what we have done is tried to, I think in the zoning bylaws, say that where those are happening, there's got to be agricultural reasons. There's 3 or 4 criteria that are there now. It's been a while since I've looked at them. So that it definitely has to improve the situation for agriculture. So they have to go through the ministry approvals, yes. What I do notice, though, is they tend to come to us at the end of the process rather than near the first of it. But certainly, yes, a lot of it is with the ministry, not with us. The intention of the schedules is to show us the areas that we know have known aggregate resources that could be developed.
Right.
The areas that are within that, they don't have to do the official plan amendment that if you were wanting to establish a pit outside of those areas, you would have to do. So there is some difference in policies depending upon where you are located in relation to Schedule C.
Well, that's my concern. Like, there are a lot of areas, if you look at the map around Simcoe, that are, the resources are there. My question, I guess, was when we did the one on the 14th, and there was a lot of opposition by the residents, but they didn't feel they had any say because it wasn't really handled with our planning department. It was handled through the ministry, and they may have asked for some input, but the people didn't feel, because I remember attending, I thought it was an OMB hearing, but maybe it was through Pits and Quarries or something like that. And basically, they didn't have any say, they didn't feel. And I just thought that there was some change coming in the legislation that would protect them more, or give them more say anyways. And you're not aware of that?
Chair, we can certainly look at that, but I think you are correct. You probably did attend some other meetings. What I'm speaking to is the fact that Mr. Livingston appealed the zoning bylaw
Yep.
because he wanted that section left in so that he could develop different properties.
Yep.
The settlement that the county worked out with him was that that site, and then there's another site just on the north side of McDowell Road that he owns, that he has permissions to do those sites. So those have specific zoning on them to permit him to remove the sand in those 2 spots.
Okay, so if you look at these maps on C4 and 5, and the areas that are available for extraction, if somebody came in with one of them, you say there's no OP amendment, they can just go ahead. Is there any action that can be taken by our planning department or this council that protects the people in those areas? That's what I'm wondering. Is it out of our jurisdiction? That's what I'm a little confused on that.
Through the chair, when someone wants to do excavation in those resource areas, they still need to change the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So you would see a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you. I have some other questions on the maps, Mr. Chairman, if I may, very quickly.
Go ahead.
On map number B15, I'm not clear, sorry. What are amendments 59? And they refer to Evergreen Hill Road just outside the urban boundary. Do you see what I'm,
Through the chair, I believe those are amendments 59.
yeah,
So those were temporary use for the, when we had the big concert at the fairgrounds. Mumford and Sons. So those are actually being deleted from the text because
Okay.
those were temporary, so they actually should come off these schedules. So I'll make arrangements with GIS to have that happen.
okay, thank you. My next question is on E2. E2, and it's the roadway designations. And I did look at my old, and I don't know if it's just an error, or what is it, the blue one, the old official plan for Simcoe, the road designations. Anyways, when I look at the collector arterial road network and so forth, Donley Drive, north of Lyndale to the Queensway, is a collector. It's always been a collector, and if you read the definition of a collector, it's a collector. It's always been a collector in the old official plan.
I agree with you.
So it doesn't show it on the map here, but, and I don't, and it is also a collector going south. Well, if you, it has been anyways in the past. Now, we never, at the time, the idea was to take it all the way to Decoux Road, but I mean, that never happened. Went into the subdivision for now, and I don't know where that stands as far as if it's going to go to Decoux eventually. I don't know what the road pattern is, but all around the hydro plant and out past Coconut Haven there, whatever they call it, and Rason Steel, those are basically collectors, all truck traffic and so forth. So anyways, is that okay, or do I need to, I don't know if it's just an error and leaving that out, but it's always been in the official plans.
Through Mr. Chair, we'll check with the Public Works staff to see
Yeah.
whether that's designated.
Do you want the
properly.
old official plan to see it, or no? You got one?
Larry has it, so we'll
Okay.
definitely check into that.
Okay. Yeah. Where'd my little list go here? I lost, oh, here it is. Okay. The only other one I asked, and I guess cemeteries, really, I was looking for something that shows them all over the, but they're all designated as just parkland, are they, or open space, all cemeteries? Is that how they're identified? That's what it shows on B15 anyways, and again, it's, if you look at, I'm looking at Oakwood Cemetery, and it just classifies it as parks and open space. Is that typical right across the county now?
Through the chair, some of the large ones would be that. I'm going to just turn to Port Dover or Waterford and say, and it may or may not be. The one in let me just try and see here if I can pick another one. But the smaller ones definitely are not given a different designation. They're permitted in the agricultural zone, or they're permitted in the residential zone or institutional zones, or designations, I should be using that term, designations. So only some of the larger ones will be showing up, not all.
Well, the other, I just on that issue, like, is it a complicated process to expand a cemetery? Or is that just a rezoning and so forth? The reason I'm asking that, we've landlocked our typical cemetery in Oakwood. So how is, if somebody wanted to open up a new cemetery or maybe change, let's say we wanted to go a little bit east with that cemetery at some date, do we have to rezone that land? Is that how it would take place, or?
Through the chair, there is a whole process about establishing new cemeteries and I believe expanding land as well. What we have, I know because I just read it yesterday in the agricultural one where cemeteries are permitted in that land use, it said you could extend an existing cemetery, but you couldn't establish a new one. But what it might say in the urban residential, I'm not up on today. So we could look into that further, but there is a whole outside process. I believe that there may, depending upon what the designation is, we may need to change the official plan and the zoning, or we may just be able to change one of them.
Okay. I don't really have a need at the present, but I'll leave it at that. My last question is the urban boundary on on B15 also. I noticed, I lost the battle, I guess, I asked several times about why we couldn't develop or extend the urban boundary east across Ireland Road when it's kind of a natural, and in some cases we have servicing there for future expansion. I know the storm sewer and so forth, but anyways, I guess looking at the east side of Simcoe there's quite a bit of jog change in the urban boundary out towards West Street in that area. They would have all been compared to the old urban boundary mapping that I looked at, and would all those have been changed based on OP amendments, I assume? I know there was a case where, if I'm not mistaken, where wasn't there a switch? They moved the urban boundary one place and took it off another?
The chair, that would show on Schedule B as Amendment 22 on the west side. You can see the two spots. One, the lower one is currently the Westwood Trails. It's in yellow. And then the part that's agricultural now was urban, and that was the switch right there.
So that was all with one owner, I assume, was it? Okay. So the other, has there been any other changes in the urban boundary? Like you show it coming down Oak Street, not Oak Street, but just to the west of Oak Street, and it goes right through the, I call it the S-bend, and I was quite sure at one time it extended out to the crest of the hill. It wasn't a defined line like that.
Through the chair, it may at one time have been, maybe back in the old district plan days, so that's talking 30 years ago. When Sorensen, I believe, was the consultant that did the official plan, the first separate standalone official plan for the town of Simcoe, this is the boundary that was there except for that one change we've already spoken of. And since then, we have not been able, through the comprehensive reviews, to prove a need to change the boundaries. So the boundaries have not been changed since they were established. That would be in 98, I believe, and then the 2004 plan, and now the one we're working on. They've all stayed the same.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further from anyone? Councillor Columbus.
Yeah, just one question that we kind of skipped by, and it's on page 216. It talks about the property standards bylaw, and it says the council may enact bylaws pursuant to the Ontario Building Code, okay? And then at the bottom, it talks about upon passing a property standards bylaw, council shall appoint a property standards officer. I can't remember now, where are we with this property standards bylaw? Did we ever, I think we passed one for the downtowns, but it doesn't encompass the whole county. So do we have a property standards officer?
There he comes.
Just in time. Sorry, I had to step out. The question is, we do have a property standards bylaw. It's in place right across the county, and each of our bylaw officers are appointed to enforce that.
So it's shared? Okay,
Absolutely.
I thought we were hiring somebody else.
Further from anyone? Councillor Oliver?
Mr. Chair, are you entertaining questions about pages we passed earlier?
If you want to, yes, let's
Because
go
I
back.
did have one small item that I missed a chance
And
to.
what page are you on?
Page 47?
Wow, way back, 47.
Oh,
Go.
no, that's not the right one. Sorry, I'll get to it here. Sorry, it's page 63. Sorry about that.
Okay?
And it's under agricultural lot sizes again. And we went through all of that, and that's all fine. But at the top of page 47, the first section, 63, the first section that is in red, and I'll just read it very quickly to council. The county may request a peer review of the information provided and/or consult with the Ag Advisory Board. I'm just concerned about the use of the phrase may request a peer review. We know in the context of subdivision and big developments, those peer reviews are at the expense of the developer, normally, and in some cases it's a requirement rather than a may. So my question to staff is, in addition to our Ag Advisory Board, why would we need wording that would allow us to potentially require a peer review of someone's proposal to have a reduced size ag parcel? And would it necessarily be at the expense of the farmer?
Through the chair, our concern was in evaluating the farm viability, we're not sure that staff have the knowledge to do that. And so that's why we said it may require a peer review. Some of them will be very obvious, but sometimes it may need that peer review.
With that, Mary, but it seems to me that could very easily be a function of the Ag Advisory Board rather than an external financial expert or whomever. So how much of a problem would it be if we were to delete the reference to the peer review of the information and simply have reference to the county may request the Ag Advisory Board to review the information provided?
Through the chair, I would suggest that you would need to look at the role of the Agriculture Advisory Board, so they have a bylaw that establishes them and what their role is. You might want to change that. The policy that's here says and/or.
Yes.
And so that enables either one. So perhaps it would be good to consult with the advisory board to see if they want to take on that role and go through the process of amending their bylaw, if they're agreeable, before you would maybe change this policy. So the way it is now, it can go either way.
Correct.
So I'll leave it up to council to decide which they want to do.
Mr. Chair, given what Mary has just said, and I'm asking my colleague to the left who sits on the board, if they could at least talk about that, and if that's something they would perform, then at that point we can delete that wording. I'm just uncomfortable with leaving it flexible, and staff could say, well, the easy thing is to get an expert outside, so that's fine with me.
Councillor
Mr.
Columbus?
Chairman, I believe there's people on there certainly qualified to do that review. There's at least 3 or 4 people there that have degrees in agriculture. Okay.
Further from anyone? If not, I guess a couple of things that are, what's going to happen to this now? The changes that we've talked about are going to happen, and it's going to the public for their comments. Is that correct?
So, Mr. Chair, we are receiving public comments until the 25th, so that's
Okay.
next week. And what we're going to do is put those all together and bring them to you on June the 6th. So
Okay.
at that point, either the 6th or the 20th, Matt's been working at making revisions as we've been going along. So I'm not quite sure, he's going to have to chime in as to when he thinks he'll have the revised document ready, but the idea is that we would have a revised document to you, but for sure by the 20th, so that you can say, yes, approve in principle to send it off to the ministry. So I'll let him take over.
My objective would still be to aim for June the 6th, to have the changes recommended by council done, and to explore the issues that I've been asked to look at. get all that done by June the 6th. We're also meeting with staff, various departments, and they have provided very useful comments on the draft official plan, and we would present the changes that are coming out of that process as well on June the 6th. I'm not sure, what the public comments will be, but we'll certainly, June the 6th, present all the information that we get from the public as well.
Okay, well, I know we've gone through this very quickly and everything like that. If a councillor has some other idea that he needs to, that would like to see changed or whatever, how it turns out, is that still possible after today, I guess, is basically my question.
Through the chair, it's possible to change things right up until you do the amendment next fall.
Okay, very good, thank you. Pam, you would
Yeah.
like to provide us with some final comments?
Yes,
Please do
thanks.
so.
Just to get back to a couple questions actually that Councillor Columbus asked. You were asking about special provision 4.8.3.3 in Delhi. That was the one with the 3 units in the basement and the 4 above. That's where the old Delhi foundry was. You may remember our friend Mr. Gates that had a proposal there. That's in response to that, and I would assume that when a new development comes forward, we would be able to clean up those amendments.
And there is a new development coming forward.
Another question that you asked about site plan agreements, if they're registered on title, and my pause there was, and I've gotten confirmation since, it's only the site plan agreements that have agreements, the site plans that have agreements, those that aren't registered on title. I just wanted to confirm that. And most importantly, I'd like to thank Council for your time today at this meeting, and also Mary and Matt for all of their work on the official plan from both Chris and I. This document has been an incredible amount of work and a lot of detail, and thank you all for your comments today and staff for their work.
Thank you very much. Anything further, Councillor Brunton?
Just on the, some of those minor changes you said you're going to make, you said back on June 6th? Only bring them, don't bring the rest of it. I don't want to see it again. Like maybe 2 or 3 pages or whatever there, but don't bring this whole document, please. Thank you.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you bring the public comments forward, will you have it by zone on where the comments are coming from?
So the document currently has little comment sections on the side that say where things have come from, and I believe that's what we're looking at doing. If I've heard your question correctly, that we would continue to put little side notes for where the changes are from.
I don't mean that. I mean the location of the residence, and I'll explain why I think that's important today, because being the representative from Southwest Norfolk, and I know the chair is from the Western Norfolk, the West took a beating today because we couldn't get what the people have been asking me to get put in place today. And I'm wondering if we get the comments, if you get any from the West at all. You'll get 1 or 2, but obviously it's being overruled here because I can't make the changes that are being asked for. And if you look at Norfolk County as a whole, okay, Waterford has a certain section, and that offsets something onto the other side. And I think that's skewing things. That's why I hear from a lot of my constituents, I wish we'd go back to regional government so that the West would get represented. And I feel this whole day I should have just stayed home and did some farm work, to be honest. I didn't get a single thing in that they asked me of. So, like, my question to you is, will you have the comments down from the areas?
Each submission that has come in will be put in its whole. It's in its entirety. Only the addresses and emails will be gone because of public issues.
Okay.
Okay. Further? If not, I thank everyone. It's been a long and arduous to go, and hopefully we will end up with something that we can deal with, I guess. So thank you.